Okay, let's go. Okay, now I'm with Ursula.
Hello.
Ursula's a friend that lives in France as well. How long have you lived here for?
I had the house for 18 years, but lived here, fiscal resident for the last 6.
I was like, oh, well, I thought it seemed like you've been here a lot longer than that.
People often feel that about me. God, she's been here forever, that woman. Yeah.
Not what I meant, but yeah. So, yes, and you live here with your husband, don't you? You've not got family here? Or you,
no connections, no nothing.
You did have a nephew coming over,
Yeah,
I think I remembered you saying.
Thanks to Brexit, that didn't work out. So,
Oh.
And we had to go back to England, but yeah, that was a sad thing. I was saying the reason I knew about Fontaine-Daniel was because a few years ago, before I lived here, one of my books came out, and I was in Laval with wonderful booksellers, and they were talking about the book, and I met somebody there who said, "Oh, when we're practically neighbours," and he said, "I live in Fontaine-Daniel," so I came over here, and he said, "I think you need to know this village." And he pointed to the name of the building here, and it's called La Source, which is the same name as my book when it came out in French.
Oh, wow.
So I just thought, okay, well, that's interesting. There's a connection. Yeah, I'll come back.
This was prior to you buying?
And we'd already got the house, but I didn't live here permanently.
Yes, sorry, yes.
And this was when the epiphany was being dug out. So at the same time as my book came out, the epiphany appeared. So there's a wonderful kind of connection between the two. And since then I'm a semi-permanent resident here, although I actually live somewhere else. Most people think I live here because I tend to be here all the time. And when I'm here, I'm quite noisy, as you probably recognise. Quite vocal.
When I first met you, I thought you lived here.
It's quite nice that people think that. I did have a place here for a while, which, thanks to COVID, didn't work out.
That happened to a lot
it
of
was
us.
absolutely wonderful, but it was 25 minutes away from my home, and as much as I loved the idea of keeping it going, because it was an art residency, so I was being an artist here, and that was great, because I got to meet some really interesting people, and
yes, because my friend Jackie stayed a few times.
Well, truthfully, it was just an excuse to meet interesting people. But
I think the same. That's what I like
it's
about the
nice,
G.
isn't it? And it was far enough away that I didn't feel I was being invaded. But when Brexit happened, it all kind of fell apart. And then here in the village, we started a communal project called the Amis de Fontaine-Daniel, which is the Friends of Fontaine-Daniel, which is about saving the buildings. It's about preserving the village, because it is a totally unique village because of the way in which it was created. You know the story of Tordemeyer and the factory, and then
some viewers have taken them to the outside of the Tordemeyer.
So you know that the buildings were actually built by the owners of the factory for social housing. So it's kind of like a proto Bourneville. It was before Bourneville and before those things happened. So it had a really interesting feel for me. And because I was brought up in the north of England, I kind of felt a commonality with it, because the buildings feel quite similar to some of the mill towns in Saltaire and places like that. And when I talk about Saltaire, I think about the fact that it died and it got reborn as an art place and as a really different life. And because life with every village was founded in 1206, it has changed through its iterations. Now we're looking to give it a new life. So what's happening with the AMI, with the Friends of Fontaine-Daniel, is we're inviting people to do talks, and so bringing, the festival that happens here, the festival.
Yeah.
It's an extension of that. So every month there are new speakers that come in. So we've got people who write books on meditation, people who write books on philosophy, people who write books on all sorts of different things, and they are coming here to kind of renew the place, which is wonderful.
Lovely.
And my old Jeeps have now been bought by the AMI, and that's part of their...
What, the original Jeeps?
Yeah, so they're using those spaces for seminar rooms. So it's really nice, because there's a vibrancy here, and unfortunately, it's every country, but a lot of villages in France are dead. You go, where are all the people? You can walk, you can iron in your knickers on the high street, and nobody would see you. Unless it's Sunday morning when everybody goes to get their bread, and that's when you never expect anybody to be around. But there's life here. And you meet people, and there are places to, like the Epiphany, there are places to have some sort of sense of community and to connect. And that's really important. If you come to another country, you've got no family, you've got no friends, you don't know anyone, you tend to gravitate towards areas that have things that you enjoy. And I'm a writer, so a bookstore was kind of, catnip to me. I just wanted to go where the books were and smell them. And
and I think this sort of place is a place to inspire writers and artists and everything, isn't it?
Yeah, because even the colours of the sunlight and the trees, and it is very inspiring. So yeah, it's and of course there's the one day a year when you can bring your paint and you can paint outside.
Oh, can you? Oh, they do that in Leicester as well, don't they?
Yeah, they do. It's quite big there, but here it's quite a small one, and I think it's the week after Fête de la Terre.
Oh, I didn't realise that.
This is the thing. That's the thing that drove me mad when I came here. How do you find out what's going on?
How do you find out what's going on anywhere in France? They're not very good at getting the word out.
It's a little bit kind of League of Gentlemen. It's local things for local people. Yeah. And if you don't know about it, the village I lived in, I was there 5 years before I knew that there was a big event every year on the field.
Where your house is?
It's not far from me. It's in the village. That's got tractors and it's got a meal and it's got an event. And I thought, how come I never knew about it? You either know about it or
if you know, you know.
And if you know once, you know forever, because it's always the same week of the year going forward. So you just have to
you do
get
find
out
that
there.
it's always the same as the big grannies, isn't it? It's they always do the same week all the time. So you've got to know really.
So if you're shy, it's a bit difficult. But if you're not, or if you've got somebody who's slightly further down the line who you meet who has been here a little bit longer, then you get to know about what's going on where. But if anybody who's coming, pick an area that has interest for you, and you will find people who are interesting to you, because you'll make that sort of connection with them.
Exactly. But I always say anybody that comes to France anyway, nothing's going to come to you. You've got to put yourself out there.
Yeah, and I think it's like being a child again. Socially, politically, in every sense, you don't know anything. You make assumptions based on, in England it's like that. Well, in France
that is a frustrating bit.
Very different.
Yeah. No,
even getting a prescription or getting your glasses done or whatever it might be. It's all an adventure though, and if you want to keep your mind active, being in a foreign country is probably the best way, because you're constantly wrong-footed.
Yep, all the time.
And I think it's humbling. You can get very arrogant if you think you know how things go.
Exactly, you think.
But you go and live in a place where you don't know how things work. You have to learn, and you have to put yourself out there. And I genuinely think it's good. It's good for me because, like a lot of people, we can all get a bit arrogant sometimes about, I know what's going on. But you don't. You're in a foreign country. You've no idea.
No, exactly.
It can be very confusing.
I just think you can't come here and, as I say, not put yourself out there.
People do that.
To me, if you've been brave enough to go to another country, surely you're brave enough to approach people.
I have a sort of pet theory, and that is there are the away froms and the towards. Those who left England because they don't like what's been happening there, and then they immediately proceed to try and recreate a version of their world with the same food, the same politically minded individuals, the same TV programmes. And then there are the towards, those who are going towards the country they want to live in, who are genuinely interested in the culture, in tasting the food, in trying out the local cuisine, in learning about a place,
embracing it all.
Yeah. So when you've been here long enough, you spot who are the away from and who are the towards, and you kind of have to navigate that one a little bit as well, because you don't necessarily want to know everybody. Just
everybody generally they're going to be going towards like-minded people, aren't you? That's the thing.
Yeah.
So if they're not like you, you're going to go.
And it's the same. It's kind of a key question for me, and in terms of the language. It's not, do you speak French? It's, are you attempting to speak French? Are you attempting to learn? Are you putting in the effort? And if you go, oh no, everybody speaks English, well, why are you here?
Well, that would be one of my questions. I mean, would you say you need to know French to live here?
I'd say you can live in any country without knowing a language. I am the child of a refugee. My mother came to England not able to speak one word of English, with a child in tow, and only spoke German.
Oh right, okay.
So
because Ursula is a German name.
So I'm half German. So it's it's something you have to be very conscious of, that not everybody has the same starting point, really.
No, it's, I mean, I do think some people may find it harder as they get older. They find that they can't learn.
Do you know what? I debate that. Won't.
Well, look at me at the age of me, and I'm doing this. I might keep failing,
but you keep learning. We all learn from our mistakes, you know, and it's fantastic what you're doing, because it's, you know, people are interested in what it's really like.
Exactly.
And there aren't many places you can access that sort of information. So doing something like this, it's interesting.
No,
it's not, you're not pressing an agenda in any way. You're just saying this is what it's like, and these are the different sorts of experiences that you can have. But I love it. I would.
What initially made you come to France?
To visit on a holiday. We stayed with friends and then did what a hell of a lot of people do. We looked in the window and went, oh my God, I could afford a house here. And that was nearly 20 years ago now. And it was a holiday home for many years. And then progressively we found ourselves spending more and more time out here. We were travelling a lot. We were spending a month in England, a month in India, and a month here. And then suddenly we realised that we were actually spending a lot more time here than we ever intended. So we were living on a boat in central London at the time, and we made the final leap and sold the boat about 3 days before COVID hit. So we were incredibly lucky. No, sorry, before Brexit hit, not before.
Oh, not right.
Yeah, so before Brexit. So we arrived here, and then it was right. Let's make this work, which we did. And weirdly, COVID helped, because we were coming back to England to work. But of course COVID hit and you couldn't do anything, so we had to innovate and change our business model completely, and that worked out.
It's been such a difficult time for everybody who's just bought
really
here
weird.
during COVID. It was just...
Well, I know people who moved here during COVID, and when COVID finished, and I opened the doors and went for a walk and went, oh, we moved in during COVID. It was like, okay. So we ended up with people who arrived during COVID, couldn't do anything, and then sort of emerged out of their little warren after COVID.
Yes, they sort of come in and then had to hibernate. Yeah, exactly.
Really, really interesting.
It was a strange time.
But there were some really interesting people in this region, and I think it's partly because it's hidden. People don't know, it has no particular identity. You know, you talk about the Dordogne or Normandy, or you talk about the Mayenne and people go, where? French people go, where? Because it's kind of not really known for anything specifically, and I kind of like that.
It's quite interesting recently, actually, because we were speaking to our neighbours about, I don't know, do you know Belleau on where the big greniers are? See, you don't know, but to a point you'd understand because you're Brit, but they're French, and it's not that far away, and they didn't know where it was. So a lot of French tend to just be in the little...
Our next door neighbours...
They don't go far.
Are elderly, and they had never left the region. No, one of them had been to Paris once as a child, and the other two had never left the region.
Amazing, isn't it?
It's fantastic. Totally different way of life.
Well, we're taking our neighbours to the UK in June, and they've never
That'll
flown
be
or been outside. It's going to be... Well... I don't know what it's going to be like, but they're apparently very excited. So, because he mainly wants to go to Harry Potter World, but I think they've already been looking at everything what they want to see. So. But anyway, get more about you. So, did you have to renovate your house when you first moved?
Yes.
Totally. Or?
Yes. It had been partially renovated, and my recommendation to anybody, if they see a partially renovated house, don't bother. Go for one that's completely unrenovated, because you'll redo the whole thing anyway, and you won't like what's been done, and it often hasn't been done very well. So we ended up stripping it right back and doing it from the beginning, and now we've got it the way that we want to, and it's lovely.
And since then you've done several other properties as well.
Yeah, not necessarily intentionally.
Again, you were just going to buy them and use them,
well, yeah, family things change. You know, life changes, and but they're all gone now, and I'm delighted about that. So
it's nice to see the back of them as well.
It is, but it's been a real pleasure doing the work. I mean, when I did the first project, my French wasn't all that good. I am going back 15 years, but when I did the project here, again, my French wasn't perfect, and I ended up. I wanted a pipe. I went away, came back, they plastered the wall, I assumed a pipe was in there, turned on the tap, and they hadn't put a pipe in, so there was just a wonderful bloom of water. And I lost my mind. I absolutely went for this guy, this French guy who was working for us. And I demanded a peep. And I said, I'm not paying for it, I want it now. And I didn't know I'd ordered a blowjob, because that's the slang. So be very careful what you say in the heat of the moment. That's another reason.
Our French neighbours.
That's another reason I'm quite well known in the village. It's,
I tried to think what you mean by that.
Or it's that crazy English woman who doesn't know the difference between a pipe and a blowjob. But yeah, you've got to be very careful. There should be a list of things that you can potentially say that sound like English words that can get you into a lot of trouble very quickly.
That's one benefit of having very close French neighbours. We do get to learn all these things, I must admit. So you wouldn't recommend necessarily renovating? I mean, you've got to really...
if you have the skills yourself, absolutely do it. If you choose to use English workmen, it can get quite complicated because there are certain regulations that you might have to adhere to that are not necessarily known by the English workmen. I'm not saying they're better, they're worse, they're different. And the prices are very different if you go for French workmen, because they're artisans and it's guaranteed, and you know, I would recommend you go down that route because you know exactly what you're getting.
Whether they're English or French, it's just they need to be insured, they need to be, you know, don't go for the price, go for...
And if somebody says they're available tomorrow, don't go with them. They're available tomorrow for a reason, because they're not very good. But I mean, post-COVID, of course, the French government gave money to places like restaurants and so forth. That's why a lot of renovation took place immediately after, and that's why it was virtually impossible to get a workman.
That's true.
So it's only just starting to get to a point where you can find somebody to do the work for you. But yeah,
I do feel for people that, you know, especially, I mean, I don't think it's that great in the UK now, but I think they're still used to getting workmen quicker than they do. And there's more companies that do things. Because here you've got a lot of, like my Duncan, a lot of people that work alone. Yeah. And then it's going to take them longer to get to you, things like that. So
it's like anything. If it's worth doing, it's worth waiting for. You know. But I have been out there with my, Tommy Walsh book of plumbing, and I have done a few things myself because I got
successfully. Oh, good.
Successfully. I didn't embarrass myself either. So, yeah. But yeah, sometimes it's. The thing is, if you really want to meet English people, go to a brico-marché, because they'll all be in the DIY shop looking for things that they would normally buy in England and can't find. So it is quite funny.
And during the renovations, did you have to do the dreaded fossetique being installed?
That's one thing I managed to avoid.
Oh, that's
I would say, if you are going to, whatever you're going to buy, check the roof, check the fossetique, because in terms of massive expenses that you don't think of, that's going to be the biggie. And also when you're doing the compromis, when you're doing purchase documents, look to see if it's got lead in it, and look to see if it's got asbestos.
Is that what it is? Asbestos. You do forget, don't you, the English words sometimes.
And a lot of the buildings do have asbestos, and of course, most of it isn't a problem, but in England we're not necessarily used to buying a building that's got asbestos in it. And
no, it's been eradicated, isn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, it's like everything else. If you are prepared to ask for help, and you are prepared to not take yourself too seriously, you're going to be fine.
Just don't expect it overnight either.
No.
When you were running Jeeps, did you find, what was your experience of that? Would you recommend, not recommend, or was it, what
it was absolutely lovely, and I found that it's a self-selecting group. if somebody's going to rent a gîte, an Airbnb type place in a city, you're going to get people who are attracted to cities. If you have a gîte that's in the middle of the countryside, you will get walkers, you will get people who've got dogs. So you kind of manage your expectations based on where your place is.
And what about the sort of clients you had? Did you have any difficult clients, or were they always generally okay?
There was one.
Oh, really?
I remember her name very well, and she phoned me up the next day and said, "Could you come round, please?" So I came round. She had a clipboard. I thought, okay.
You're joking.
I don't like white toilet paper. I want pink, and it kind of went on from there. And the last one on there was, "Why isn't there a jelly mould?"
Oh
well,
no, the gîte.
The best bit was there were two gîtes next to each other. They were mirror images, and because you just leave the key under the mat, you know what it's like around here. She got in the wrong one, so the couple who arrived for that one found her asleep in their place, and they found me and went. I said, "Oh, just go in hers. The key's there." So I had to swap them over the next day because they were staying at different periods. Did she apologise? Did she buggery? She was hilarious, and by the end of it, she was my best friend. I don't know why. I think because I went, no, you're not having that. You're not having that. You're not having that. Jelly mould. You can go and buy one, but get a grip.
Some people just need it straight up, don't they?
It was so funny. She did this beautiful painting for me afterwards as a gift.
Oh,
it was really.
So it's obviously just the way she was. And,
yeah. She did have a husband. He was like Mr. Invisible, but. Well, so that wasn't really a problem. It was just a bit of an odd moment.
Yeah. Touch on transport and that. Have you found it a problem with not having public transport readily available as you would in?
It's not a problem. You just accept the fact that you can't get a taxi because taxis aren't taxis. Taxis are used by the ambulance service, and you just simply can't get one. And if you can book one for 3 months in advance, it's about £200 for the trip. It costs you 20. No, you cut your cloth, don't you? There's always a designated driver. There's always, that's how it works around here.
So you've never had to claim any sort of benefits in France at all or anything?
No, but when COVID hit, I was amazed to find that we got benefits because we'd had the gîte for a year and we got the equivalent money of what we would have earned, which was a lifesaver.
I was really surprised, I have to say.
Unexpected, but and they were very quick to make the payment. So, as much as the bureaucracy seems to be incredibly involved and detailed and tortuous, it works.
Exactly.
Civil servants.
Ursula's got a podcast. What's your podcast called?
I've got a few. I've got one which is called the Petrified in which I read from my book, The Source.
Okay.
Same name as this building. It's the book that was published in a few different languages, including French, and it's how I ended up in this village. So I've just finished reading that, which has been fun because I wrote it quite a few years ago, and I've changed a lot since then. So it's very odd reading a book that you wrote, and then it feeling like a different person who's written it because you've moved on.
Right. So but the Petrified Voices, what does that title come from?
Petrified Voices. Part of the story of Petrified Voices is about Mother Shipton, who in her cave was petrified. So there's a figure of Mother Shipton, north of England. And her name was Ursula. My name is Ursula, and I told the stories of 2 Ursulas at different times. So that was it's called the Manual of Everyday Magic. So that was, and women do magic all the time. They make things happen miraculously, including the dishes. We are the ones who go over and above to make the world right.
So, but these are fictional books. They're not, or are they?
The Source was a book about a real event in my life.
And that's always a good one to go on, isn't it? Because then it's not something you're making up. You've got something to base it on.
No. And then I've written 8 books so far, and the one I was talking about called Soul Midwife, which features Fontaine Danielle in it, is a Victorian Gothic novel. And I couldn't find one I wanted to read, so I decided to write one. So it took me 3 years to research it. So it's in different places like Budapest and London and Bedlam and all over, and Austria. So I went to all of these locations, had a great time. Research is great for everywhere. And then I wrote the book called The Soul Midwife, which is about a woman who believes she can call the angel of death. So that was fun.
But your imagination, I just didn't know where to start.
Are you kidding? I'm not sure what's real anymore. What's reality? Reality is what's going on in your own head, not what's going on outside. I think that's just pictures and images and sounds. The real reality is what goes on inside our own head, including either being frightened or not. You can have the same experience, but feel differently about it. So I'm constantly writing stories in my head. I'm writing a story now about you.
In your head, yes. Well, I hope I come off well in this.
So please don't tell me anything about you, because you'll end up in one of my books. My husband, who does the sort of first kind of edit, says, you can't use her name. I'm going, yeah, but that's her. I said, yeah, but you can't use her name in it. So the names have been changed to protect the innocent. But the fact is, this particular woman in this particular story read it and still didn't see herself, because people don't see themselves as you see them. So it is quite an interesting thing. But everybody's got a story. Everybody.
Well, that's what they say, don't they? Yeah.
Do you know how old you'll be if you don't write the book? Same age you would if you did write the book. So just write the book. That's the way that I say it. I think that's the right way around. This is tea.
But so the podcast, you get a lot of response from that?
I'm getting really interesting responses from that, because the amount of people who associate with having that particular period of time in their life and how they managed it. But that's that one, and then I'll probably start The Soul Midwife, reading that story in autumn. But I've got three other podcasts. One is called Hypno SOS, and those are short hypnosis audios that are 10 minutes long, because that's how I used to be in my other life. I used to be a hypnotherapy practitioner and a professor, and you can listen to it, and it's either to help you sleep, to reduce anxiety. And I started it during COVID because people, frontline workers, because anxiety was off the scale. So I was doing them live for a while, and then I switched over to doing them as a podcast. So there's about 300 episodes and about 500,000 downloads on that one. And then
I'll have to send you the links to all of these.
I'm doing another one called Hypno Sleep, which is just sleep, because that's the most popular one. So you can listen to that to fall asleep to. And then there's Hypno...
I'm using all different things to get to sleep at the minute, so that maybe I'll have to try that.
Keep trying. And then there's Hypno FR, which is the French version. So I have a French therapist, and she's on Reunion Island, so you can hear the birds in the background.
Lovely.
Birds. It's really lovely. So that one starts, and then I am starting one in the autumn with a friend called the Dauphin Club.
The
Dauphin Club.
Dauphin?
Daughters of Fucked Up Mothers.
Oh, okay. Right.
And that's proving to be very popular, and people tell their stories anonymously about what
that's the fantastic
to have a crazy mother.
Yeah. Things like that. It's just people can just get things off their chest.
Yeah, they can associate with it. That's the thing. It's and I kind of think it's an interesting thing about audio. People feel it's like a confessional. They don't actually think about who's listening to it, and they're more likely to tell you things that they wouldn't tell you if they're sitting in front of a camera. So
that's true.
I'm just enjoying it.
Yeah. Well, this is why I can do my podcast with Sharon. She doesn't like to be on camera, but we have a really good time doing that.
I think you need something to bounce off.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. And it's just that she knows she's not being seen. So
what about you? How did you end up here?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, they'll know all that.
Oh.
They've had a few videos. They've had a few videos of that. No, we came over. Funny enough, we bought 20 years ago today.
Oh,
well, not today. This year. And we was coming over when all the other Brits were coming over, when you'd seen like Place in the Sun, and
wasn't it?
140.
Euro.
I can't remember, to be honest.
140.
It's funny, I've just had to find out from Duncan how much our house cost, because I'd forgotten. But I think it was something like 35 with all the fees in for the two houses.
Insane, isn't it?
It was insane, and but yeah, so we came over just because I'd got a bit tired of the UK, really, and then we came over for holidays for 8 years. Then found that I cried every time I went back.
Yeah, I got that. So no going back?
No, we'll put it this way. I don't think you can ever say never, but I think it would take a lot.
Well, you've changed and so has England, so I think it's
just got
difficult to go
worse.
back anywhere.
It's different, and you couldn't find anywhere to buy once you've lived here anyway, can you? Because whatever you sell this for, you'd never get anything for there.
No.
But I mean, the same with you. Would you go back?
No. But then I don't feel deeply rooted in England, although I've lived there most of my life.
No, because you've been in other countries, haven't you?
Yeah,
as well?
and because I'm only half English. So it's a strange relationship with the place that you live in at the time, if you're not completely from that country. Because you don't necessarily think. I don't necessarily think like somebody who's English, but I speak like somebody who's English.
Was you born in Germany?
I was born in England, but we spent most of our time out there. So I spoke German first, and then I came back, and I had a stammer, and then learned English, and it all got a bit complicated. But I just think it makes you much more open to different experiences, because you're not wedded to one way of doing something. Also, I am quite abrupt. You might have noticed. I've got a podcast. And I think that's my German side, because I don't kind of take any prisoners. I'm a bit more abrupt than perhaps most.
I think that is the impression people have of Germans, please.
They don't kind of waste time.
No.
Oh, hello. Thank you very much for telling me that. So it is odd, because I've got a very English accent, but not a very English attitude. So I don't really mind where I am, as long as I can navigate the system, really. And as I say, it's good to just challenge yourself and keep. It's never too late.
You obviously speak German, obviously English, and how good is your French?
Élise.
Yeah.
Elle me posait une question.
En français?
Ouais.
On parle en français.
Ah, merci.
So, I mean, you say you've lived in India. Do you
we used to work there.
Right, so was it because they're quite English speaking there, aren't they?
There was a certain level of Indians who are purely English speaking, so it was very interesting. 3 different cultural variations. But yeah, and I speak some Italian, and for my sins, I married a Sicilian at one point, but we won't talk about that. I learned Italian.
Is there a podcast on that?
No. Bloody that better not be. I learned Italian so that I could speak to the family there. And of course, it was like I arrived in Sicily, and it was like learning English and going to rural Wales, because it's a completely different language.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fading, because I don't use it very much. But I think the thing, if anybody asked me for one tip on how to learn French, I would say find a children's book that you love. Buy the French version.
Oh, like the story that you know
and
well.
Listen to the audio at the same time on 70% speed. So if you like Harry Potter, get the Harry Potter book in French, listen to the French audio. As you're reading, you listen, and you already know the story, and it shows you how much you already know, and it gives you confidence to speak.
That's the first person that said that.
I've also got an audio, which is free, on my website, called Confidence in French. So it just helps you remember how much you know, because there's a huge amount of vocabulary, as you know, that's common. It's just a pronunciation.
You do need to revisit, I think. I mean, I used to do Michelle Thomas, and he does a thing, doesn't he? But at the end, he says to go back on everything you've done, and it does make you feel good, doesn't it? Because it just reminds you of what you have
That's why alcohol
learned.
helps. Not too much, but a glass,
No,
because it gives you
definitely.
confidence to speak. You'd say things that.
That's conversations we have with our neighbours.
They flow. They flow. No idea what you've said, but it works.
Very often gets a bit rude, but
So it's not a recommendation, but it is one way of handling things.
No, it's true though.
I would certainly say go for a children's book, because it's simpler language. Listen to the audio at the same time on a slower speed, and you will just feel so much better about your comprehension.
And as soon as you've got that confidence, you want to learn more, don't you?
Yeah, and you'll go out and prepare. When I first, was doing refurbishments and stuff, I prepare specifically for certain conversations that I was going to have that day. Or if you're going into a shop, you prepare to say hello and have that. So it's context. Only take as much as you need into that conversation.
Yeah. I mean, talking about language, have you had to use like the hospitals and doctors frequently? Have you had a problem with that, the language of that?
we access a really good service called SOS Anglo, and she's fantastic.
She's got mentioned quite a lot on quite a few videos.
She's one of those, because she covers the whole of France. And for example, if you're at a hospital and you don't know what you're saying, you can call, you can get her online, and thanks to the joys of technology these days, and she'll be there with you and taking you through the whole buying process. She's brilliant. I can only say good things about Valerie.
You got any funny stories about hospital visits or anything like that?
I've got a few, but they're not for the.
Oh, okay.
They're not coming out. One thing I will say about French medication is be very careful. Read the instructions to make sure which end it goes up. You've got to be very clear on that one.
Oh, are we talking suppository?
We are, yeah. When somebody says, "Oh, that was a big pill," just go, wrong end. Definitely the wrong end. Oh,
yeah.
And ampules. Breaking the cap off the ampoule.
Yes.
I find it's very alchemical. I don't like that.
My friend really had a problem with that because I did the first time because it's quite a pointy end on it, isn't it? So it's quite. You think you're going to cut yourself, but it's no. I think she gave up in the end. I couldn't. She was too scared of it.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think I've never had anything like that in the UK. I must admit. But no, I could have to do that at least 3 times.
Yeah, most of the pharmacists know not to give the other end delivery methods to you because there's usually a few versions of what I've
But they seem to use it a lot though here, don't they? Because they do see it as a better method.
If you talk to scientists, there is a better absorption through that end than there is through this end. You lose more, but not with everything.
That just seems bizarre, doesn't it? Why? Surely not everything can work from that end. It's got a long way to go.
Well, no, it hasn't. It depends what it's treating. I mean, this is a completely different subject. Not one I want to go into.
But it's worth talking about because people come here and think, why they keep giving me these suppositories when...
Because they work.
Yeah, exactly.
Quicker and more efficiently, but you might not find them.
Yeah.
So
I mean, regarding the staff, if you've had experience that they've not spoken English or that they've been very good at English, what's been your...
As in every country, there are certain demographic in hospitals who aren't themselves French. A lot of the time they speak English. The younger ones speak American, as you know, because they're watching TV the whole time.
My grandchildren do that.
It's hilarious. I think it's like everything. If you are prepared to listen, and the trouble is when you're ill, first thing that switches off is your capacity to take any more information on board. So it's harder. So you really have to pay attention to what people are saying and to say doucement, can you say it again, or comment, and use the phrases that mean, otherwise they're going to assume that you know what's been said.
Exactly, and I must admit I'm guilty of that sometimes, but I do manage to put the sentence together by a few words.
Or I'll record it and I'll take it home and I'll make sure that I have actually understood.
That's a good point, actually. Never thought of that. But
your phone is your friend.
Good. Yeah,
recording everything.
Too much sometimes, but yes. No, that's not a bad idea because but I've got into the habit of now saying like "come on," or trying to get them to say it again, as whereas rather than just sit there
for
and
me
think,
it was numbers.
I'll work that out later.
It was numbers. I had real difficulty because after 69 it goes bonkers in French, so it took me a long time to get to grips with that. So when I was walking, I'd count and do a lot of repetition. But if somebody was giving you a phone number, because they give it in different chunks to the way that we give it, I'd just say write it down. I had a little notepad and it was write it down. I'd get people to write things down.
And logically, the way they do phone numbers makes sense.
It's much more sensible, really. But
I just started to get to know my number, landline and mobile now, that I can actually say it back. But the difficult thing is if you have to give your email address or something. It's getting used to that word as well, and certain like the A's and the E's and the I's get very confused and a bit blurred. So
it's like, they're so basic. It's one of those things. It's repetition. And once you've got it in your head, it will click in. But
it's a scary time when you first come over it. If you haven't researched,
challenging.
But if
don't come expecting everything to be the same as home.
No.
Come expecting everything to be completely different and just throw yourself in with both feet, really.
Both shopping wise, do you find, like cost of living wise, do you think it's comparable or do you think it's more expensive one or the other?
I shop very differently here. I go to the market in Umbria on Saturday morning. I go and get the fish, I go and get the meat, I go and get the vegetables, I go and get a coffee in the local bar, I go and get the gossip. That's how I shop, and here.
And that's doing it that way is the lifestyle as well, isn't it? That's the thing.
Yeah. So you get to know the names
So
of the
I
vegetables.
personally find the markets a little more expensive, so I tend to avoid them.
Well, I tend to buy less. I buy for what I need, and I'll go and ask the fishmonger, how do I cook this thing that I don't know what it is? So
well, it's the same as they say, like, because all of us tend to do the supermarkets. I say all of us, a lot of us do, but butchers, people do say go to the butchers or go to the deli counter because you can ask for exactly what you want. Whereas if you buy it ready packed,
I find that I do spend less than I did, and I am more. I make more variety in my cooking.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm cooking seasonally, and I'm cooking with what's there, and I'm using things I wouldn't necessarily use. But you either embrace a lifestyle or you don't, and it's a matter of choice. If you come because you just want something that you want to be able to buy a house and you want to recreate your little bubble, absolutely fine, that's your choice. But you're missing out on
definitely missing out.
You know.
I would say you're. From what I can tell, you're not the sort of person to go down the overseas aisle or go to an English shop. You
I will go down the overseas aisle, but it's the Chinese one. There's a Chinese, there's a Chinese shop in Laval, and I buy it.
I've heard that.
Yes, it's a treasure trove. I love it in there. I've got a loyalty card now. I love that shop. So if you can get kimchi around here, I'll send you a link. I'll send you the information. I like doing a lot of Asian cooking, and if you're in rural France, you don't really find that much.
No.
You know, to get a decent Chinese or to get a decent Indian, you cook, as in English food, a Chinese meal and an Indian meal. But I cook it myself now, so the only trouble is there's two of us. I tend to cook for 6.
Oh, really?
So the freezer is heaving with all these different.
Well, that's a good way of doing it then.
It's yellow. It could be apple, or it might be curry. Because the stuff comes.
Yeah, that's the classic, isn't it?
We're trying to eat our way through it.
Tonight, what's for dinner tonight? Well, I don't know. Yeah.
It's a potluck.
Yeah.
And certain meals that we try. My husband's even better than I am. Tête de veau, that's a no-no for me.
Really?
Have you had tête de veau?
I have. I can't say it's one of the things I would choose. It's usually when it's a set meal I've had it.
What's the other one? It might be pot au feu, but there's a couple of things that, because I'm primarily vegetarian, and that is so much a face of beef, I can't do it.
We was always really scared to try it because we did visualise this head on a plate, which once upon a time maybe it was, but it's generally now just put into like a terrine and it's sliced. So.
Even so, I think it's probably the texture for me. I get. But I'll eat most things. If somebody else will cook it, I'll probably eat it.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't turn it down. But it certainly wouldn't be my first choice. But,
No.
And I do tend to. I'm so anal. I tend to my German side. I have got a book with every. If I go to a restaurant for the first time, I will take the card. I'll stick it in my book, and I'll put the date I went and whether I thought it was any good or not, and who I went with to remember. Because otherwise, you think, have I been there? Because in summer it's different from in winter, and of course in August you're buggered. It's my birthday's in August, nowhere to eat. You know, so it gets interesting.
Difficult in August, yeah. We tend to do a lot of Google reviews, so sometimes
Logis,
we can go back in
that's
and find
a good
out.
tip. Logis, you know Logis hotels?
Is that the one that's on the way to 30 Marseille?
No, not one. It's a mark. It's a brand. Logis.
Yes. Well, I think there is a Logis on the way to 30 Marseille.
The restaurants in Logis, you will always get a good meal for lunch. Always.
We were just talking about that
Always
the other day,
get a good
actually. No, I've never tried it because I just think of it as a hotel. The one
honestly, the grubbier and weirder they look on the outside, you get inside, the food is always good. I've never been to a bad one so far. The hotels, I can't say they're the same, but because they are at a certain standard. There's a really lovely one in
Sorge, I see it. I knew it was
with the grottos and the Neolithic museum there. Lovely restaurant called the Hermitage, and it looks like nothing from the outside. It's a little hotel. You go inside, and in the middle there's this lovely little courtyard, and the food's great, and it's a reasonable price. Logis. That's what got us on to trying. We were working our way around all the logis in Miami, and when we go somewhere else, if we don't know where to go, we go to a logis.
And it's worth remembering as well to go in these places that look like nothing, because they're usually the better ones.
Do not be afraid.
They are more you know,
Authentic.
more authentic. They're concentrating on their food rather than how they look.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the other question. I was just going to ask, how have you been accepted by your neighbours and that? Have you been...
Well, interestingly enough, the neighbours I was talking about, who were in Little Hamlet, the neighbours I was talking about who've not been out of the region, when my book came out in French, I did an interview on Radio Bleu Mayenne, and my French was absolutely appalling. Really, really bad. My excuse was we didn't live here, but that night they turned up on the door and went, "Was that you on the radio?"
Oh,
Yeah. They said, "You're coming around for dinner tomorrow night." So, and they bought my book. There were a couple who were aging hippies, and they planted by the moon. And some of the things in my book are about lunar cycles and things taking their time. And we just became really good friends. And then the neighbours next door were also friends, just introduced to them, and it's just great, you know. Everybody's very different, and we just accept the fact that there's a lot we don't know, and don't drink at the same speed as your French neighbours. Terrible idea, because even if you only live around the corner, you're not going to make it. Yeah, so that's...
We left our French neighbours at 1:30 in the morning, Saturday night.
That's not unusual, is it?
No, not really.
What I do like is being able to have an argument, have a debate, and have an opinion that's different from your neighbours, and then shake your hand and it's fine.
They love debate.
I do like that.
They do love a debate, and the only thing I don't like is if there's a few neighbours together, and it
can get a bit heated.
Oh,
it's fine. It's fine. Next day it's fine.
But it gives me a headache because I can't understand what's going on.
But the thing is, because in France you do philosophy as part of your course at school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you study philosophy.
Well,
so
no wonder.
I think it gives a real insight to the way people think, because they think more deeply and express themselves differently to the way somebody is English.
Oh, definitely.
So it makes it all fun. Have I mentioned I've got a podcast?
I think you did, yes. But I will definitely be putting the links to Ursula's podcast on the screen.
She's going to forget. You know,
and the names of the books. Well,
you can do.
Once you've sent it to me, I'll have it there to copy, paste, whatever, won't I?
I'm happy with that. There's one here in the epiphany if somebody wants to get a signed one.
Well, thanks a lot, Ursula, anyway.
Thank you very much.